what not to get back order for his birthday by Will Hughes.
Hello, my name is Will Hughes, and I am an author and an illustrator. And I've written and illustrated a book called What Not to Get an Ogre for His Birthday. This is the book, and I'm here today to read you my book, to tell you the story, and then to talk a little bit about how I came up with the story, how I came up with the ogre who's the main character, how I draw this ogre, and then I'm going to show you how to draw your own ogres and monsters and think of your own stories, with the hope that you can go off and write your own stories about ogres, monsters, and anything a bit like that. So, to start off, I'm going to do the most important thing. I'm going to introduce you to my main character. Before we read the story, we've got to get to know this ogre. And here he is. This ogre is called Len. And to start off with Len, I'm going to draw a big nose. You might expect he's a big ogre, he's going to have a big nose. He's not going to have... How many massive ogres do you see with little tiny noses? Very few at all. Len, he's normal for an ogre, he's got a big nose. Here we go. And he's got 2 eyes. He's got forehead. And he's got these big ears. They're a bit like the wings of a butterfly on each side. And then inside, do a squiggle for all that stuff that's going on inside your ears. Who knows? Just looks like a squiggle to me. And then we're going to do bottom of his head. And what he does have is a very big smile. So, there you go. So Len, he grew up somewhere which was full of ogres. He grew up somewhere where there were big ogres, there were small ogres, there were hairy ogres, there were red hairy ogres, there were blue hairy ogres, there were ogres that were hairy and flat, and if you walked up to them you'd think, is that the doormat? But no, it's an ogre. There were ogres who were really tall, with hard skin and green hair, and you'd think, is that a tree? No, it's an ogre. Everything ended up really being an ogre. But Len, he was quite typical looking. But he decided to move somewhere which was full of people, because Len was a friendly ogre. He thought, I'd get on with everyone, I'd get on with some people. So he moved to a town full of people. And he had a great time. He got on really well with them. There was only one issue. And the issue was the people who were friends with Len thought, well, we want to get him a good present for his birthday. Who doesn't want to get their friend something good for his birthday? But they couldn't think of anything. They could not think of anything that was a good present to get this ogre. And so, did they find anything to get Len? Well, that is the story of this book, which I'm going to read to you now. Here's Len. You got, oh, I've forgotten one important detail. It's small. I said he only has one small feature, and that is this small curl of hair on his head. So, I'm going to read you this story now. Will they find anything that Len can have for his birthday? Or will he just have to have a little bit of cake or something and have no present at all? We'll find out. What not to get an ogre for his birthday. Stanley and Martha loved buying birthday presents. They could always find the right gift. But there was only one exception. And now, can you guess who that might be? Who might that be? There's a bit of a clue on the front cover. Yep. It's Len, the ogre. A rather large ogre called Len, who just moved in next door. Now Stanley and Martha wanted to get him something good because all his friends live far away. But what do you get an ogre for his birthday? Can you think of anything? Can you think of anything that will be good? Well, Stanley and Martha are about to try and think of everything. You could get him a bike, but that might be a bad idea. That could be a pretty big bike, but with lead on it, it looks really small. And you can see he's caused chaos. He's gone through someone's picnic. He's knocked someone off the road. A bike is clearly not a good idea to get an ogre for his birthday. You could get him an exciting shirt or a pair of colourful socks. Maybe not. Maybe that's a bad idea. They're not very big, are they? What about taking him to the theatre? Well, everyone else might think that was a bad idea. Nobody wants to be sitting behind an ogre at the theatre, do they? And look, if the only way for them to see would be if they climbed on the ogre's shoulders, and absolutely never climb on the shoulders of someone you don't know at the theatre. Never do that. That's a bit of advice from me. And there are lots and lots of reasons why a pet might be a problem. He's got a cat. Cat's gone on his head. He's knocked the fish over. The dog's pulling him along. There's no pet that's gonna not cause a disaster. What about taking him on a balloon trip? That might not work. It's too heavy, he can't take off. A trip to a castle, well, that might end in disaster. And going to the museum might get you into a lot of trouble. What about taking him to the fanciest restaurant in town? Well, that could be very expensive. It seemed that there was nothing you could get an ogre for his birthday. Stanley and Martha, they've tried everything. They thought of everything that they could possibly think of. And there's nothing. Len's just going to have a birthday with no presents, with nothing. Except Stanley and Martha had a brilliant idea. Eventually, they had a brilliant idea. They sent letters to all of Len's friends, inviting them to a party. His friends said they're on their way. And when they arrived, Len had one of the best birthdays ever. He's got a huge, gungy, gooey chocolate cake. What ogre wouldn't like that? All of his friends are there. Look how happy he is. That is what you get an ogre for his birthday. The end. So, that's the story. We found out there is something you can get an ogre for his birthday. You can get him a big party with all his friends. So Len stayed a happy ogre. But what I'm going to show you now, I'm going to show you how I came up with the story. So, first I'm going to show you how to draw an ogre. I'm going to show you how I came up with my character Len and what he looks like, and then this might help you come up with your own monster who looks completely different. When I first had the idea, I drew a cartoon which was called Want Not to Get a Giant for His Birthday, and so Len was a giant instead of an ogre, so he looked a bit different. This is sort of what he looked like originally. In some ways quite similar, but in a few ways a bit different. So he had a nose, and he had a moustache, which is the first difference, and he had quite kind of small ears like this. Hairy. He was really quite hairy actually. Bit unsure about things. He had a neck and big long arms. And so you can see, in some ways, that is quite similar to Len, but there are a few things that were different. And what I did was I drew the ogre loads of different times, changing things, just thinking about what he could possibly look like. So I'm going to do that now. So I drew him with quite a big nose, a small head, little ears, and a moustache. And that one's a bit unsure. Quite hairy. I drew him with a big nose, no moustache, little ears, and a long neck. I drew him with loads and loads and loads and loads of hair and huge ears and a very long nose. And so you can see a lot of them have similar features, but they don't look quite like how Len ended up. And it was only when I kept going and I thought about which features I liked from each one, and slowly I ended up with how Len eventually looked like, which has a bit of all of these things. So he had a big nose, 2 little eyes, and I decided not to give him a moustache because I thought it was nice that he looked like he could be any age, but I really liked the big ears. I thought they stood out, and I did these big ears with a bit of a kink in the middle, so they almost looked like the wings of a butterfly. And all sorts of wiggles going on in there. And the most important thing about Len's character was he was really, really friendly. So I gave him a really big smile and a little bit of hair, not too much. The other thing was, I thought, because he was an ogre and the whole story was about him being clumsy and knocking into things and bumping things over and not really being in control of where he was, I thought it was good if he had this huge body that was so big it even went over the top of his head. Like if you had a big, huge back like that, you'd bump into things, wouldn't you? And I thought it's a good opportunity to put a few more hairs on. And then I thought, what does he wear? And I thought he's a friendly guy. So he wore, I think even in some of the early pictures, he wore these. I decided quite early, some dungarees. Some buttons. And there you go. That's what Len ended up looking like. So we can go, you can see how each of these different, drawing it over and over again and drawing different things, how I looked at some bits and thought, oh, I like that, and you can see how just naturally it ended up in him. And then now we've got the finished Len, we can think about other things that tell us about him. And the main thing is that he got on with people. So if I draw some people here, it shows, one, how he gets on with them, and secondly, how big he is. Because if I draw a person, this could be a man, we can tell because he's got a moustache. This man might be quite tall, but compared to Len, he's tiny. So we see how big Len is. And even if we draw his hand here, we can see his hand is almost as big as this man's body. So I'm going to draw another hand, and then I'm going to colour him in. Right. So we've drawn Len, and I've shown here that by changing just little features, the character of the ogre can change completely. And when you're drawing monsters or creatures like this, you can change the features however you want. And so you can create a million different monsters. You can create a monster just how you like. So these all have kind of big blobby noses. What if we gave him a sort of trunk, like an elephant's trunk? Let's come here, 2 dots. The ogre is going to have a knobbly head and some pointy ears. They look a bit like the knobbles on his head, but there they go. He's not quite sure, this ogre. And then, a big part of the character, what are they wearing? What do they like to wear? This ogre's going to be quite smart. wear a tie, and he would wear a jacket, but he's lost it. He's lost his jacket, so he's only got his shirt. He's quite skinny as well. He's trying to sniff it out with his trunk, but he can't find it. Who's got his jacket? Another monster. This one, all the others, they've got 2 eyes. We can do more than 2 eyes. We can do 1 eye, which is, well, that's less than 2 eyes, but we can do it. We can do 2 eyes, that is 2 eyes. We can do 3 eyes. We can do 4 eyes. We can do 5 eyes, 6 eyes. He's got 6 eyes, and he's got a little 7th one, just for looking around corners. He's got a tiny nose, a bit like a pig snout, and a big grinning mouth, and he's happy because, he's also got very long ears, and he's happy because in his small arms he's holding that monster's jacket. Is he going to give it back? Who knows? And then, what colour are these monsters? That's a question you could ask. Lent was green. Well, these don't have to be green. They could be a completely different colour as well. We can see here that you can make any kind of monster, and when you're coming up with a monster, everything, what they look like, what they wear, it tells us a lot about their character. So once you've come up with this character, what do you want to do next? You want to come up with a story. And how would I come up with a story? How did I come up with a story for what not to give an ogre for his birthday? So what I did is, once I'd decided what Len looked like, I thought the best way to think about the story is to draw a storyboard. So that is boxes, which will be each page of the story. And the most important thing in this story was thinking of things not to get an ogre. So what were the things that would be bad ideas to get an ogre for his birthday? And I just drew lots of them. I drew ones you'd seen there. So I drew the hot air balloon. And I drew Len really unhappy because his hot air balloon won't take off when everyone else's will. And you can see these are really sketchy. So just giving an idea of what the pages are like. And I drew ones like I did Len on his bike. And it all going wrong. And yeah, they're very sketchy. And I did ones that ended up not in the book. So I did a boat sinking because Len was too heavy. And it was by drawing all these little storyboard scenes, I thought which ones I liked, which ones worked, like these two, and which ones I didn't think worked, like that one. So if I were you and I was coming up with a story about a monster I'd just created, I would do a similar thing. I would draw some boxes, and it depends how long your story is. So if your story was just going to be 3 pages, I'd draw 3 boxes. And in the first one, that will be the first page. So it would have, mainly, it will be introducing your main character. So you draw your ogre. So if we were going to do that one who has a trunk, your monster, bit unsure. And you'd set things up. So you'd introduce his character. What's he like? What does he like doing? So I'm going to draw him fishing. He likes fishing. So I've set it up. I've got this monster who likes fishing. And then in the second picture, something's going to happen. It's the middle of the story. Something's going to happen in this story. So this monster, he has fished up a fish. And the fish is not very happy about being fished up. So something's gone wrong. It doesn't have to be something that's gone wrong, but something's happened. And then in the last picture, it's fixed. There's some sort of solution. It comes to an end, comes to a conclusion. And the conclusion is the monster, well, he's happy at last, but why is he happy? He's happy because he and the fish are friends. And they are having something to eat together. Big cake. So there you go. And that kind of, you could do something like that for a longer story. If you want to make a longer story about a monster, you could do more pages in the middle of things happening. But you've always got this, something's beginning and something's ending. Right, so now I've shown you how I came up with Len, how I came up with the story, and how I would draw different monsters. Now it's time for you to do something. I want you to go and draw your own monster. Come up with your own monster, think about what it looks like, then think about maybe what it wears. Does it wear a hat? Does it wear a scarf? What's it called? And then think about what is it like? What's its character like? Is it friendly? Is it a bit scary? Is it a bit grumpy? Does it have lots of friends, and what do they look like? You can come up with as much or little as you want. But then, once you've got your monster, you know what it's like. I want you to draw it and to think about something that it would hate to get for a gift. And then draw it getting this gift and everything going wrong. And then I want you to think about what it would love to get as a gift, draw it, and draw everything going right. And from that, if you've enjoyed doing that, then you might want to think of a longer story which involves this monster getting a gift and not liking it, or getting a gift and really liking it. And once you've done these, you can share them online if you like. If you use the hashtag BigDogBookFest, then they can be shared and you can see other people's monsters as well. So, thank you very much. Goodbye.